Good morning, everyone. It is what is day? Fridays at You Define Wellness. We're bringing in a provider from our network to share something about their modality, educate us, give us information that we can put on our video dictionary on our website. I'm Denise O'Malley, the founder of You Define Wellness, and it is my pleasure today to bring to you a resident expert from our network, Rita Shimniok, the owner of Purely Living Wellness. Rita knows everything there is to know, I think, about tinctures, and she's going to be sharing with us what she does know. So Rita, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Denise. Good morning, everyone. I don't know everything there is to know about tinctures. You know, I just feel like every day we're born to learn something. With plants, there's a never-ending opportunity to keep learning. So tincturing is something I started doing about 5 years ago for myself. And what I learned, it's a way to preserve the medicinal properties of a plant at their peak time in their growing season. And, you know, there's other ways to preserve plants as well as just drying the leaves for tea and so forth. But the tincture is an alcohol-based product, is the end product. And that alcohol is what draws out the phytochemicals that offer the medicinal benefits in a concentrated form. So a very little bit goes a long ways with a tincture. And most people, and this is part of my slides, but I just, you know, I think there may be a day where we can't go down to the nearest Walgreens to get over the counter this or that. I think, you know, if transportation between countries becomes less viable than it is, or for whatever, or prices go up on over the counter, it's, you know, if you can make your own remedies for your own family, that just puts you and your family in a good place, I feel. And then you know where they've come from as well. So that's why I enjoy making the tinctures and offering them, just because I think it's God's medicine, and our body knows what to do with it because it recognizes it. Does that explain a tincture?
It does. It's a good background for that.
Okay. So I do have a slideshow today. I don't know if this would be a good time to start it, because I kind of have I'm gonna get this going here. Is there something I need to click on? Share screen?
On your end, it's share screen, select your file, and up it should come.
Okay, let's see. It's under where on my screen? I'm sorry, I should have asked you this before.
Do you have it open already? It should show you a lot of little icons that you can select one of them.
Oh, right here, yes. Okay. So I think it's important to know that
Rita, we cannot see your screen.
You can't see that? Okay.
No. There we go.
Great. Okay. All right, I want to make this go full view.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. So the pioneers were, you know, when they were settling our land, they were learning about the plants from the Indians and what was working, you know, and in different parts of our country have different medicinal plants. So in Colorado, for instance, I know osha root is used as like an overall wellness plant. First sign of the cold or flu, people go out back door to the range of the mountain or whatever they have near, and osha root is something they dig up and make a tea with. So the problem with the natural remedies, I guess if you want to call it a problem, is they cannot be patented. And therefore, without a patent, huge sums of money can't be procured from a medicine. So, and in the early 1900s, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies shut down the colleges that were teaching natural medicine. And they actively sought to discredit anyone who was not practicing allopathic medicine. So they used terms like snake oil and quacks to dissuade people from using the natural remedies that had been offered for hundreds of years. And they invested in the pharmaceutical companies. So of course they had an avid interest in natural medicine going by the wayside and trying to influence more of what we have known today in practice in allopathic medicine. But that's why we stepped away from natural medicine, simply because it can't be, it's not a moneymaker for any company to profit from. But more people are interested in getting back to their roots and connecting with the earth. That's what I'm finding. And for anyone who's interested, this is mullein, a photograph of mullein, which is excellent for cough and respiratory support. It's some people call it lamb's ear, and it's got a very soft feel to it, kind of like a velvet leaf out in nature. That might be one help in identifying this plant. But there's lots of information out there for people who are willing to learn. So tinctures do allow the preservation of a plant's medicine benefits during peak growing time. And this is just a lineup of jars of tinctures that I have in the process. So first step, if someone's wanting to make a tincture, is to learn what plants are native in your area and what ailments your family has that you want to address. And then from there, join a local group, check out books from the local library, and start making a list of what your top plants are that you would like to tincture, and then see if you can find them or start planting them and growing them on your own. And this is cleavers. Cleavers was actually my introduction too. So to medicinal plants in my backyard. And it's a plant that kind of just sticks to your, I don't know if you can see my arm, but I've got it cleaves to the material. So if you got something annoying attacking you and clinging to your clothes when you're out, that could very well be cleavers, which is excellent for lymphatic drainage. So second, just learn what time of the year is best to harvest. So for example, right now in the spring is a good time to harvest young stinging nettle leaves. And that is an excellent support for your liver and detoxification. And often many parts of the plants can be used too. So that's something else you can learn. But the supplies to have on hand it's not like a huge setup in expense. Mason jars with lids, 80 proof vodka, gluten-free might be considered in your family, a strainer and a cheesecloth, a gram scale, amber bottles to package your end product in, and labels, because it's so important to know what you've got at all times.
Okay, so I got to jump in here on 80 proof vodka. There are, I have not been bashful or quiet about sharing the fact that I gave up alcohol a number of years ago. And there are a lot of people out there who are afraid of doing anything with alcohol in it. Can you address that?
Yes. I'm glad you asked, because I have an answer. I knew that question would come up. So what you do with the drops is you can have a cup of hot tea or hot water. You just put your tincture into the however many drops for your dose, put it into your hot water, and you let it sit for 10 minutes and the alcohol will evaporate. And then you're still getting those phytochemicals from the plants. You're still getting the medicinal benefits. So that's especially important for anyone who might be wanting to use tinctures for children.
Okay. And the other thing about it is, does it have to be vodka? Because I understand there are some tinctures out there over the counter that are using brandy.
Well, I actually have some that are using brandy. But for beginners, vodka is just a good start.
Mhm.
And there's a reason to use the 80 proof. And there's, people who use Everclear, you have to start diluting, and there's a lot of science to that. So for somebody who's starting out, when I started, I used only vodka, and then I started researching the spirits, because certain spirits like gin is juniper berries, which have their own medicinal benefits. So you start mixing up things according to what the end result is going to be for. So, and labeling, I'm just going to stress the labeling. So when you find your herbs, you rinse them off, pat them dry. I actually have a salad spinner that I usually dry my herbs in. And then I just place the appropriate size amount of chopped up herbs in a jar. And then you cover completely with vodka, secure the lid, and then put a date and the content on the jar. And I usually use those as markers that write on glass for, when companies coming, you write on the wine glass somebody's name. Well, I use those markers for my labeling. And then when the particular tincture is done in this jar, I can wipe it off and reuse it. So it's just a good way for me to label the contents and what I'm supposed to be doing with it on what date. So, but this is an example of cleaver aerial parts, burdock root, which is an excellent blood cleanser, and curly dock root, which is another excellent blood cleanser. Now it's an arm workout. So once you've got your herbs in whatever form filled with the jar, every day you need to be lifting those jars up and just giving them a nice little shake just to agitate the material inside so that the liquid is moving around. And you repeat that every day for 2 to 3 weeks, a couple times a day. And then you keep the jars in a dark location or covered with a towel on your counter or wherever it is you have them setting. And this is kind of an example of different size jars and, how I've got them labeled. If you don't grow your own plants, it's really important to keep a logbook and note where you've gotten something from. Some areas might produce more potent plant medicine than others, depending on the fertility of the soil, but also just make sure if you're out foraging and not growing that you are harvesting from a completely organic area. And roots do take longer than aerial parts of a plant, in case anyone's wondering about how alcohol extracts anything from something that looks like a piece of bark and wood, which is what the burdock root looks like. So after you're done agitating, the jars are moved to a shelf where it's not so visible in your room all the time, just so you can kind of have that area back to maybe start another set of herbs. And you just keep them in that darkened area and agitate them just a couple times a week until it's time for bottling for use. And that varies between 6 to 12 weeks. So some you can do as early as 3 or 4. The books that I'm going to recommend actually give you instructions on that. But these are just some facts on a tincture. So a 2 fluid ounce bottle, which is the average that a tincture comes in, is 60 milliliters, and that's 30, a 1 milliliter is 20 to 30 drops. So basically you have 60 servings in one bottle. But what I like about the tinctures over syrups or other things is the body utilizes 98% of the liquid extract. Whereas if you were using an herbal capsule, it's only metabolizing 39 to 53% of that capsule. So a liquid tincture is highly absorbable into the bloodstream. And it's a faster response often for people than a capsule would be. So some reasons to choose a tincture: 25-year shelf life. So, store them in the amber bottles in a cool, dark place, and they will last you forever. Actually, there are families who pass tinctures down from, generation to generation. So I like that part. And it's small amount, delivers a powerful aid. Because they require no refrigeration, you can take them camping or out on vacations and so forth. And it's gentle on the system. So the body recognizes it because it's natural plant substance, as opposed to a synthetic version of a plant that might come from a lab. So, and it just helps people reground to the earth and give gratitude too for what she provides for us. And when you start making tinctures and getting your children involved, they get pretty excited, with helping identifying the plants and chopping them up. So it's a good family event too, just to get together and make tinctures together. And these are just some examples of some finished bottled tinctures. So the lungwort is a favorite, and that comes from pulmonaria, which is a beautiful perennial plant. If you like spring flowers, it is peak time right now for pulmonaria. And that is one that the leaf is got gray spots on it, like a diseased lung, and it helps heal the lungs. And another favorite is bergamot. And I don't have all these plants pulled and so forth to show you right now, but again, I'll recommend some guidebooks. But bergamot is flavor of Earl Grey tea, often used for Earl Grey tea, and it has wonderful antifungal properties. And then the other is mullein, which is just a favorite for chronic coughs or deep respiratory issues. Just helps soothe the lungs and helps the person be able to recuperate more readily from a cough. Are there any questions about any of the process of making a tincture?
No questions so far. This is fascinating.
Okay. I always have to have my disclaimer, first of all. So I'm providing educational information, and I always encourage people to do their own diligence in their wellness research, and especially in plant identification. There's several books, and one of my favorites is called The Herbal Apothecary, and I think it's a great starter book, but it continues to be my go-to, and the author is J.J. Purcell. And what I love about her book is she will teach you how to make tinctures. And Denise, you can make a non-alcoholic version using glycerin. It just doesn't have a very long shelf life, and you have to use some sort of preservative in there as well. But you can make a different, it's not called a tincture, it's called an extract, I believe, when you're using the glycerin. So there are other ways you can make it without alcohol, if preferred. And then she's also got some great recipes for salves, for skin salves and so forth. So it's just a nice book, and I love the way it's laid out, and the photographs are excellent. And an excellent herbal field guide is a pocket guide is great to have as well. So I don't feel like you can have too many herb books. So I have quite a few of them. I do have the lost book of herbal remedies that's popping up as an ad all the time. If you have an interest in herbs, it pops up all the time on Facebook. And my kids got me this one, and it's an okay book, but I go back to my J.J. Purcell book just because of the formatting and the way it's easier for me to find things in that particular book. So
we do have a question that has popped up, and I think
Okay.
now's a good time for questions.
Yep.
We've got your contact information up there. That's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and stop the sharing of it. So if you're watching this on a recorded video, just rewind and you'll be able to get Rita's information real easy. So the question that we have, and I think it's a really good one. Okay, so there's quite a long process for this. Is not something you're doing overnight and on making a tincture. So you have to plan ahead.
Yes.
So as a lay person who is interested in starting to make some, how does a lay person know which plants are going to be best for tinctures and where they should be starting?
Well, starting with what you're looking for your own health.
Hmm.
So if you've got a cough, you might want to go out and look for the mullein leaf,
Hmm.
which is that soft, fuzzy lamb's ear. Okay, and then to start that tincture, you'd collect the leaves, rinse them off, chop them up, and if you can fill a mason jar, like a quart-sized mason jar, half full of plant material, that's a good start. And then you would fill the rest of it. That's usually the rule of thumb is the material, plant material should be half of the jar, and the rest of it then is filled with the
Hmm.
alcohol.
Okay.
And it's because it's that is a leaf, that one would be ready in about 6 weeks.
Okay. All right. So it's you're planning ahead. You're knowing what's going on with your body. These are the things I want to work on. I'm going to have this in 6 to 8 weeks. So we got that. Where do you find the leaves?
Well, you got to go
Sorry,
find
it's a basic question.
you got to go find the plant. But I will tell you, if you want to just buy dry, you can purchase dried leaves, and it Rose Mountain Herbs
Hmm.
is an excellent resource. They might even be in Colorado. I'm not sure, but they have an excellent website. They sell dried plant material. It's all organic, and it's a good resource for people who don't have plants growing out in their backyard or on nature trails near them. So you can purchase things online.
Awesome. I just found it. It's Mountain Rose Herbs. It's out of
Mountain,
Eugene, Oregon. And so they've got a great website. We just gave them a plug. How's that? Anyone
yeah,
from the company
they
want to
have, and
reach
they
out to me?
you can peruse their website and you'll just learn things about
Okay.
what different herbs are out there
So
too.
this is a good thing to experiment, try one, see how it works, read up on them. I'm on a tincture right now that I didn't realize that's what I was doing for part of the healing process after an accident I had. And my naturopath had suggested this one particular tincture. So it's my first experiment with them. And I found it
Okay.
really, really interesting. That's all I know
Excellent.
about them
Yeah.
and what you've just taught us.
Yeah.
Um, so that was the only question that we had on our Facebook. I know we do have some guests live. If anyone who is with us on the Zoom call that would like to ask a question, you can either unmute yourself or put them in the chat box and I will ask the question for you. So we're opening up for that. So while we're waiting for any questions that may come up, Rita, any quick tips that you want to add to this?
Yes, use your calendar. Whatever you're using for scheduling, if you're putting something in a jar and then in 6 weeks it's time to decant it, just go and put right on your calendar decant lungwort and kind of make a plan on your calendar to be available to do that. You can, of course, it doesn't have to be right on that date, but it doesn't do a whole lot of good for you to let your plants go an extra 2 months in the alcohol. It's going to get a little bit stronger, but there's not an advantage per se to that.
Okay.
So just, and if you're shy on the 2-ounce amber bottles, which are kind of in high demand right now, you can always decant it and just put it in another clean jar. But you want to keep it in a dark place. So mason jars are typically clear. So have them in a box or covered with a towel or something, but just make sure it's labeled as to what it is.
Awesome. We do have a question about a specific tincture for perhaps motion sickness.
Well, what I'm going to suggest for motion sickness is peppermint.
Okay.
So I don't usually see peppermint as a standalone tincture. I've not made it just because it's pretty commonly available, but you can even just chew on some peppermint if you're traveling and see if that helps. But peppermint usually is a good one for motion sickness.
Awesome. Another question. How do you know it has fermented in a healthy way and is safe for consumption? That's an excellent question.
Well, alcohol is very much a sterile, you know, medium, first of all, which is why it's used. But you do need to make sure that you're sterilizing your mason jars
Mhm.
so that you're not putting your, plant material in a jar that's already got some sort of molds or things like that. So you need to sterilize your equipment before you begin using it. And the alcohol itself is a sterile product. And so but it's important to keep your plant medium covered by alcohol. You have to have enough alcohol in there. If you've got plant material sticking up out of, those are getting exposed. And so
Mhm.
that's where you could get something growing. So you need to be careful and make sure everything is submersed. And
Mhm.
that's why we also do the agitation.
Mhm.
It keeps everything under the alcohol, making sure you do that every day.
Yeah, and it is a good workout.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you've got 14 jars lined up, yep, go down the
Um,
line.
what about the jars themselves? Can you use old jars that had something else in it, like salsa? To
Yeah, you
Okay.
definitely can, because it's not like we're processing these like canning, right?
Mhm.
They're just a temporary storage place, so to speak. And yeah, one of the one cleavers, that was an old pickle jar that I reused. It was a good size. So like, and if you're going to be doing a lot of a certain plant, and I don't know, parties are coming up and you see people with those big pickle jars, I like gravitate towards those at garage sales because I mean, I could do like a gallon of nettles in one of those. So,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Final thoughts for you.
well, I'm enjoying doing what I'm being able to provide this for my family. And I realized as through it's like, wow, I have a lot of these. And so that's when I started offering them and decided I should create a label and make them available as I have them. But the thing is when you start making these tinctures, you're going to find that you're you're covered for years, of things coming down the line for your family. um, the lungwort's just a good one to have on hand for cold and flu season. Lemon balm is excellent for cold and flu season. I talked a little bit about that on Wednesday. And so there's just certain products you might want to, tinctures you might want to consider having that are good, considered good general wellness tinctures to have for a starter.
I think that's excellent, excellent advice. For all of you who are watching on Facebook, please go down to the comments section. You will find Rita's link to her store on the You Define Wellness website, through which you can contact Rita at any time, but you'll also see other things that she has put out there. We also invite you over to the video section on our Facebook page for You Define Wellness, because we have a ton of videos that are there. But we thank you all for watching us, whether you're live with us on Facebook here in the Zoom room, or you are watching the recording later. And Rita, I thank you for sharing your expertise. I learn something every single time we have you, because this is an area that is brand new to me and I love it. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today.
You're very welcome. It's been a delight to be here.
And with that being said, we hope to see everyone on another live or recorded video that we have coming up.